Hello, I'm Janine Kakmar, and you're watching PHTV4's Bookshelf. And we're here with our guest today, Matt Matkowski. He's the head of Public Services at the Palos Heights Public Library. Matt, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure as always.
You know, you're our resource for reading in the community, you know, so I got to ask you, what are people reading now? Who are the big authors right now?
So, you know, you have kind of the standard crew. You got your Patterson, Danielle Steele, still very popular. Barbara Kingsolver recently came out with a new book that has proven to remain popular. It's
The
got
Demon
some staying
Copperhead,
power.
I read that book. We should probably do a whole show on that book.
Yes.
It's an incredible book. Yeah.
Yes, it's real good. So.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be talking about the new releases for May this show, and maybe a couple other bonus books to boot. So we'll get started. The first book we'll be talking about is a award-winning detective noir book titled 5 Decembers by James Kestrel. I should know this title because I'm actually reading it at this time. But it takes place in December of 1941, where America teeters on the brink of war. And in Honolulu, Hawaii, police detective Joe McGrady is assigned to investigate a murder, a homicide that will forever change his life. And because the trail of his murder takes him across the Pacific, he uncovers some things that we probably don't want to know about, especially though, as the U.S. doesn't know at this point, Japan has its fleet already heading towards Pearl Harbor. So a lot of timely things. We've got a lot of thrilling action. It's a story of survival against all odds. I haven't finished it, so I can't tell you what happens at the end. But so far, so good. So check that one out. Our next on our list is Soul Boom: Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution by Rainn Wilson. And if you're familiar with that name of that author, you guys might remember him as the actor who portrayed Dwight on The Office. So you're wondering, why would I want to read a book by Dwight? Well, actually, Rainn Wilson, he's a native of Wilmette. I didn't know that he was the security guard at the Baha'i Worship Temple.
The things you learn.
I know. But he was also a co-founder of a media company called Soul Pancake. And that was the name of a book he came out with 15 years ago as well. He was also co-host with a podcast called Metaphysical Milk with scholar Reza Aslan, which is another author you might be familiar with. But he searches for ways to connect to our humanity, especially in these increasingly challenging times. So Adam Grant says this is a book that will light up your brain, warm your heart, and tickle your funny bone. So.
Yeah, you never know. He was actually in town to do a signing for this book recently. And you would, like you said, you would think, what does Dwight know about spirituality? But he's got the experience. So.
Yeah. So interesting. All right. Well, Matt, this next one is yours, and this is about one of your favorite historical figures, right?
That's right. This is a historical fiction novel by Jeff Shara. It's called The Old Lion, a novel of Theodore Roosevelt. Of course, as you mentioned, my favorite historical figure. And in this, Jeff Shara accomplishes what only the finest historical fiction can do. He brings to life one of the most consequential figures in U.S. history, Theodore Roosevelt, peeling back the many-layered history of the man and the country he personified. From the mid-19th century to the early 20th century, from the waning days of the rugged frontier of a young country to the emergence of a modern industrial nation exerting its power on the world stage, Theodore Roosevelt embodied both the myth and reality of the country he loved and led.
So this is a fiction book about Theodore Roosevelt.
Yes, historical fiction, of course, based on true events, but they take some
Jeff
license.
Shara, a big author on Civil War, many Civil War books. This author has a lot of experience in historical fiction. So I'm curious to see what he does with the Theodore Roosevelt figure.
For sure.
Yeah. Why is he one of your favorite figures?
So just, reading biographies about Theodore Roosevelt, he's got a lot of confidence. So whenever I have something big coming up in my life, I usually read a couple of passages from one of those books just because it pumps me up.
Why am I thinking with the book River of Doubt when I think of Theodore Roosevelt? Is that with his son who was down in the Amazon River?
Yes, correct.
That was another good book. Put that on your list. We're going to be mentioning all kinds of titles here. So check that out, historical fiction. And then our next one's by another major, Tom Hanks, author?
Tom Hanks.
Really? Okay, tell us about it.
So he has written a novel, historical fiction to modern day fiction, basically. It's called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece.
That's a mouthful.
It sure is. And it's from legendary actor and best-selling author. Tom Hanks previously had released a collection of short stories. It's a novel about the making of a star-studded, multi-million-dollar superhero action film and the humble comic books that inspired it. Funny, touching, and wonderfully thought-provoking, while also capturing the changes in America and American culture since World War II. So this book is set in 3 different eras. Just after World War II, when a soldier returns home, he has a nephew, I believe, and kind of inspires the nephew later in the 70s to create a comic book about his uncle. And then somehow in modern day, they take that comic book from the 70s and turn it into a superhero movie.
Wow.
So,
And it sounds like it's going to have all of the insider Hollywood bits that Tom Hanks liked when you're making an actual movie with some of the difficult people or what are interesting characters, that kind of thing. So
he would know.
Yeah, right. Well, and this is something you're going to be writing about in the newsletter for the library, you said. So I'll have to read what you write up about
That's
it.
correct. I think, the title is a mouthful, The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece. I think my parting thought there was, can Hanks hack it as an author? So
We'll find out.
will
Stay
see.
tuned, right? All right. Our next book is by author Justin Cronin. Many of you might remember this author. He wrote The Passage, which was a trilogy a couple of years ago, which was turned into a TV series. His new one, The Ferryman, is a standalone novel, though, so you can read that one by itself. And it's about a group of survivors on a hidden island utopia where the truth isn't quite what it seems. And it was reviewed as kind of a cross between Westworld and the movie The Inception. So it kind of puts you where that book will be at. So check that out. And Matt, you've got a laugh out loud one here by Dave Barry, huh?
That's right. He's got a new book out called Swamp Story. And in this one, a character named Jessie Braddock is trapped in a tiny cabin deep in the Everglades with her infant daughter and her ex-boyfriend, a wannabe reality TV star who turned out to be a lot prettier on the outside than on the inside. Broke and desperate for a way out, Jessie stumbles across a long-lost treasure, which could solve all her problems if she can figure out how to keep it. The problem is, some very bad men are also looking for the treasure, and they know Jessie has it.
Oh, well, sounds intriguing, and I'm sure laugh out loud funny as Dave Barry is.
No doubt.
Yeah. Who do you have next? Martin Cruz Smith, a political thriller, huh?
That's right. This is a mystery slash political thriller called Independence Square, and Detective Arkady Renko, one of the most compelling figures in modern fiction, according to USA Today.
Okay.
Risks his life when he heads to Ukraine shortly before the Russian invasion to find an anti-Putin activist who has mysteriously disappeared.
Very timely.
Ripped from the headlines.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we'll have to check that one out.
Yes.
And our last book we have for the month of May is The Guest by Emma Cline. Many of you might remember her. She came out with her book, The Girls, a couple of years ago, which really put her on the list. It was a mega hit for her. In her new one, this is about a woman who pretends to be someone she isn't in this taut, propulsive, and impossible to look away from novel. Looks like it's been reviewed as another spellbinding literary achievement by Emma Cline. So you'll have to check that out as well. And of course, you'll see on our next slide some of the upcoming releases from our New York Times bestselling authors, such as Danielle Steele, Joe Nesbo, Nora Roberts, and James Patterson. So that wraps up our books for the month of May. Matt, thanks for being here with us. And thank you for joining us today on PHTV4's Bookshelf. I'm Janine Kakmar. Thank you for watching and good reading.